Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Tuesday, July 22nd. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ are coming off record-setting sessions to start the week. During regular trading, the S&P 500 advanced just 9 points or 0.14%, but that was enough for record territory, posting a close at 6,305 points. The NASDAQ gained 78 points or 0.38% to end at 20,974 points. The Dow lagged and ended marginally in the red, off 19 points or 0.04%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Yes. Good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. The S&Ps are now higher. We're about a tenth of a percent lower all morning long, but they just recently moved a little higher, which is kind of positive. I mean, one of the key things was that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent mentioned on Powell, nothing tells me he should step down right now. That is creating a little euphoria for the markets, which is why you saw the S&Ps go from down a tenth of 1% to higher by 0.33% this morning. But I got to tell you, we're awaiting a catalyst. Markets are awaiting a catalyst. I mean, you got tariffs, you got trade, you got earnings. These are the hot topics for the markets, this week. President Trump is scheduled to meet with the president of the Philippines later today. Now, their discussions are said to be focused on, trade negotiations, security cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. Hot topic for, the Philippines as they, have disputes with China over fishing waters over again and again. Markets are cautious on the potential, agreement with the EU and even India. I mean, you talk about the EU and they're talking about preparing retaliatory tariffs. That's what they're working on right now. It's creating a list of retaliatory tariffs. You don't do that if you think you have an agreement ready to go. So that, and we've been hearing lip service about an agreement with India being real close, almost on the cusp, very near, for about a month now. So if a deal is actually that close, it should have been done by now. But there's still, it hasn't been announced, so there's a lot of concern, and we're getting closer to that 8/1 date. So we're market has a little bit of cautionary tone to it today because they're waiting on these things. On the earnings front, Crown Castle, CCK, Coca-Cola, KO, MEDP, and Northrop Grumman, they're all trading higher after their releases. NXPI released a positive report last night. Remember, they were going into very elevated expectations, though. After the bell today, you got earnings from Chubb, CB, SAP, and Texas Instruments, TI. Then you turn your attention over our attention over to Europe this morning. And Europe is mainly lower. I got to tell you, it's mainly lower. You get the DAX down 229 points. That's 0.94%. It was down over a percentage point earlier this morning. A lot of it has to do with the trade deals. We're seeing weakness in autos and banks and tech. FTSE was higher. Now it's lower, but it's flat. It's down 0.01%. A little weakness in pharma. CAC down 0.65%. It's really sentiment is very cautious over the uncertainty, over the looming August 1 tariff deadline, and the idea that they're going to be hit with 30% tariffs. Turn our attention over to Asia. In Asia, it was mainly higher, I would say. I mean, the Nikkei dropped, 0.11%. Not much. I mean, they just had that election over in Japan. It was kind of pricing the election a little bit. But you have Hong Kong up, 0.5%, up 0.54%. Saw some gains in property and consumer stocks in China. China rose for the fourth straight session. It was up 0.62%. Construction and power shares, gained. The government announced the start of a $170 billion hydropower dam. So that caused a lot of attention in electricity stocks. And then we'll turn our attention over to oil. Oil is trading lower. We got the WTI trading $66.48. You got Brent at $68.55. It's about the tariffs. Tariffs will lead to slowdown in economic growth. You got OPEC increase in supply. Those two factors are kind of bearish for oil prices. And after the bell today, you get the API oil stockpiles report. That's something to keep an eye on. But that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market update, Emily.
Bill, I will reiterate the main headlines here. As you said, tariffs, trade, and earnings really are market drivers this week. And we're going to be keeping track of news across all of those headlines. We will start with earnings action. Bill, what is going on in terms of earnings today?
Well, I mean, you have Coca-Cola, ticker KO. They beat by 3 cents. They did it on lower revenue. Stock was higher. Now it's a little bit lower, down 0.88%. RTX Corp beat by 13 cents on higher revenue. RTX is down 1.10%. Sherwin-Williams, SHW, Sam Henry Williams, they missed by 43 cents, but they did it on higher revenue, but the stock's down 3.62% this morning. Upcoming after the bell, you got the TI, Texas Instruments. Their EPS is $1.32. Expected move is 5.62%. You get Chubb, ticker CB, Charlie Boy. Their EPS is $5.85. Expected move is 4.83% when they release after the bell today, Emily.
Bill, you're keeping track of all of those using your earnings alert on your NewsWare. And when action is heavy, it is important to have that so you can gather all those earnings as they come out. Speaking of gathering data as it's released, you also have alerts for your economic reports and events. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of the day's economic events?
10 a.m. Eastern time, you get the Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. You have the API oil stockpiles reports. So, those are the really only reports that I see coming out today. But the big news is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this morning saying he sees no reason for Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell to step down. Right now, while revealing plans to announce several trade deals within days. So that's kind of positive for the markets. But that's all I have for you in terms of economic data happening today, Emily.
And when it comes to alerts, Bill, you're not only keeping track of that earnings action and those economic events, but you're also keeping a finger on the pulse of other types of news, data, and information coming out of different sectors and segments. You're following things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, and catalyst calls. Every morning, you're looking at your stocks grouped together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
Doing a quick data check. I'm looking at my Dow stock because I got 19 higher, 11 lower, and one unchanged. I'm looking at my, little losses in Netflix. Everything else is trading higher on the FANG stock. That's kind of positive. You're looking for news behind the tape like Apple. They announced the expansion of Apple retail into Saudi Arabia. They're going to be doing an Apple store in Saudi Arabia next year. Meta Platforms. Remember, Meta Platforms signed a long-term agreement for 100% of the renewable output of this Enbridge project, and Enbridge announced a 600 megawatt solar project in Texas. So it's positive. Tesla, this is interesting. Tesla is trading, slightly higher, but JP Morgan analysts said they tested the Tesla robo taxi service in Austin, Texas for a full day. They walked away with positive comments about the service. Nice to see. In terms of Dow Jones 30 stocks, Microsoft along with Meta, they filed appeal against Italy's decision for 1.04 billion in VAT tax. Coca-Cola, ticker KO, they announced that they're going to be launching a cane sugar version of Coca-Cola this fall. In terms of merger news, NTRS, Northern Trust, Nancy, Tom, Richard, Sam. Goldman Sachs said that they held talks to acquire Northern Trust. Remember, Bank of New York, BK, they also said they held talks with it. Northern Trust, NTRS, is trading higher this morning. In terms of guidance news, MedSpace, MEDP, Michael, Edward, David, Paul, they raised their full year 2025 EPS view to $13.76 to $14.53. Street estimate is $12.94. So nice uptick. NXPI, NXP Semiconductors, ACQ3 revenue coming in $2.89 to $3.30. Street estimates $3.03. Widespread there. Crown Holdings, CCK, they raised their full year 2025 adjusted EPS view to $7.10 to $7.50. Street estimate had at $7.05. That's a nice uptick there for Crown Holdings, ticker CCK. In terms of shareholders meeting, Booz Allen, ticker BAH, Boy Apple Henry, they're having a shareholders meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Buyback news, Tenet Healthcare, ticker THC, Tom Henry Charlie. They authorized a 1.5 billion share increase to their share repurchasing program. And that's what I have for you about news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what is your pick of the day today?
Going with Chubb Limited, ticker CB, Charlie Boy. Earnings are out after the bell. EPS is $5.85. Expected move is 4.40%. Looking at yesterday's call volume, 967 calls versus 501 puts. That's positive. Open interest, 14K to 11K. That's positive. Major brokers have been raising price targets. That's positive. Entry price. I want to I think the market's going to pull back a little bit. So I'm going to say 273.50 to 274, somewhere in that range. I might be a little low, but we'll have to wait and see as we get closer to the open. But that's my pick of the day. Chubb Limited, ticker CB, Charlie Boy, Emily.
Chubb Limited it is today an earnings play, but also using those other pieces of data to make that call. And in just a moment, we will do a recap on yesterday's pick of the day, which was also an earnings play. So stick with us through that. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
LMT, Lockheed Martin sees full year 2025 share repurchasing of $3 billion. Interesting. Booz Allen, BAH, they were awarded a $350 million Air Force contract. OpenAI and Oracle have entered into an agreement to develop a 4.5 gigawatt of additional Stargate data center capacity. Yeah, there's talk about that Stargate really, was not a lot of movement, but nice to see an announcement on it. iRobot IRBT launches Roomba Max 705 combination robot and auto wash docking station. PANW, Palo Alto Networks, not denying Centennial One takeover rumors, simply won't comment. Humana accelerates efforts to eliminate prior authorization requirements to ensure a faster process. Okay. Trump administration is expanding search for partners to build a Golden Dome missile defense system. General Motors second quarter core profit fell 32% to $3 billion. AstraZeneca, ticker AZN, they announced that $50 billion U.S. investment as pharmacy tariffs threat looms. That's all I'm saying this morning.
Okay, Bill, before we get to trading today, let's do that recap on yesterday's pick of the day. We heard you mention the stock during your NewsWare Alerts breakdown. It was NXP Semiconductors. They did report earnings after the bell yesterday. They reported Q2 EPS of $2.72. That was 4 cents better than analyst estimates. Revenue for the quarter came in at $2.93 billion versus the consensus of 2.9. So sneaking by that estimate there. The company did comment that they delivered that revenue above the midpoint in their previous guidance with a focus on their end markets performing above expectations. As I mentioned, you did give us that note about guidance in your NewsWare Alerts, sort of a wide range there, and sort of below the consensus estimates. A decent report, but this one there were some high expectations. It's been interesting to watch. There was sort of a drop after earnings, but it seems to be inching its way back up now. The long and short of it, Bill, how did your call work out?
Hey, it worked out yesterday. Listen, the stock opened up 227.27. Then it ran to 232. That's 2%. You got to take it. I say 1%. If you make 1%, take it, walk away. Sure enough, we made 2%. It did trade off after the earnings because the expectations, much like Netflix, the expectations were so high going in that, a little bit of a pullback doesn't surprise me. But you made the 1% was there yesterday during the trading days. So yeah, NXPI was a winner yesterday, Emily, was a winner.
Taking it when you see it, walking away with a gain with that one, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's Chubb Limited pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.